I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, welcome to the Star Trek Picard after show. The only one that matters. The only one not hosted by an annoying character from Star Trek past that I don't ever know. No. Hi, I'm Christian Bladt.
Hi, Christian Bladt.
And I'm so happy to be here, not alongside Wesley Crusher, but instead, who's next to me today? Oh my gosh, it's Nikki.
I will love you forever, Wesley Crusher.
Yeah,
I actually like Will Wheaton, but not so much Wesley Crusher. Will Wheaton, I'm okay with.
Why are you saying like Hank Hill from King of the Hill?
You'd have to have watched a lot of Family Guy to know why Will Wheaton is so important. But look who's next to her.
Hey!
It's Flobo. New content every day.
New content every week.
Every week. How about every day?
No, I can't do that. It's way too much work for me. I just can't. I'm so glad I'm here, man. I'm so glad you're here in space with you guys.
This is the third show I've done this week with Flobo.
Yeah, man. I'm so surprised you're not tired of me yet. That's great.
I am. Hey, but look at that.
Thanks, Dad. Yeah.
Hey, it's Frank Moran.
Oh, hey, everybody. Hey.
What's up?
All right. So let's do an unfair comparison. Let's start with the idea that episode 1 of Picard was an 8 out of 10. Let's say it was an 8 out of 10. Maybe you feel it was a 10 out of 10. But we'll average it out to an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
What number would you give out of 10 for episode 2? Flobo?
15. I did not like last week at all, and I'm just different. Thank you so much, very much. There was a lot of nostalgia goggles in there last week, I felt. This one set up the mystery a bit more clearly for me. I understand why the bad guys are bad guys and what Picard's motivations are a lot clearer. So I was a fan this week.
So this is a 15 out of 10 for
15
you.
out of 10. The last one's an 8. This is a 15.
New content every day.
New content every week.
All right. Nikki, what did you think about this one?
I'm going to give it a 4.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was exactly going to give it a 4.
I'm going to give it a 4.
Yeah.
It was really slow. It was like they sat and explained things to me when they could. I mean, they told instead of telling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that right? Is that wait?
Yeah,
they told instead of showing.
Yeah, that's
what I was
show
getting at.
anything. Yeah.
Right. Get off the planet. That's what we want. Jean-Luc Picard in space.
Yeah. Look, Jean-Luc, we still love you.
Absolutely.
It's not even that.
I just
And look,
can't with you guys.
If the rest of the season were to remain at a 4, I would still be glad that we got him. A little disappointed. Frank?
I'd go along with that. Yeah, it was, a lackluster episode to be.
What are we watching the same show?
Let us know in the chat.
Last week,
Are you Team Flobo or Team Sensible everybody else?
I can't believe this. Last week, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the best show ever." I'm like, "Was a lot of people walking really slow in a vineyard, and now we're actually getting things where we can latch on to see what the mystery is, and the crew is coming, and it's just a 4 out of 10."
Do you remember seeing Daaj take out an entire team of covert Romulans?
That is a trick to happen in Act 2 to stretch out the hour. I'm not gonna fall for that trick.
All right, that's fair. I'm glad that you stand by your opinion, regardless of how
Right or wrong it is.
So you kind of knew maybe this wasn't going to be a thrill a minute when you saw that episode 2 was called Maps and Legends, because when I think excitement, I think maps. I also think legends. What we did get though was a representation of what happened on Mars 14 years ago. Now, who here has watched the short treks that ties into this? So just Frank and I.
Yeah.
We're the only ones who did the unassigned homework. We see a different side of those same events, which it's. I think the short treks, largely you feel like they're non-essential, but they help a little bit, except until Discovery when that character showed up and you're like, huh? Who's that now? Yeah. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Christopher Curry in the chat says, "Love the episode. Just realized the forensic Romulan scan was technobabble that wasn't refined in TNG used to be, but I can forgive it with great story." 8.5 from Todd. Titus 168. Dawson.
I love that he wouldn't commit to 9. He's like 8.5.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
8.5 out of 10.
Why don't you add the 0.5 and yours is 15.5?
That's a solid B. B's are great.
Yeah, so I think that was interesting backstory to get, and we see, as Nikki was pointing out before the show started, why don't you get the credit for calling out what the name of the main synthetic
the
was.
synth that started that whole thing, his number was F8. Fate.
Yeah, you should have known not to trust him. In all honesty,
obviously.
everybody's joking around with him like he's their friend. And, he's trying to, make jokes. I don't even know really what he was. It was basically he was doing like whatever the 24th century version of "What's up" is. Whatever that was. What did you think? I'll ask you first, Frank. Getting to see that incident. We don't really understand what's behind it because it's sort of the whole point of the season. What did you think about watching those events unfold?
I felt like the short trek was kind of a dud of a dud of a short trek. So you're not missing much because by not watching it. Right. But I mean, it just painted the picture. I felt like I knew enough that I didn't need to go into this extended flashback.
So you felt like you got enough of it.
Yeah, I didn't need to see, because I don't feel like this really gave us any new information. It just let us see it.
Yeah. So you didn't enjoy the slow, barely instrumental version of David Bowie's Heroes? That didn't touch you in any way?
No, I mean, that when I think many of us will agree that there was a lack of forward progress in the story.
Yeah.
That we spent so much of it up top. That's 5-6 minutes you could have put at the end of the episode and move things along a little bit quicker.
Right, and also we're in a format where these episodes could be any length they want them to be. Mm-hmm. So you could also have had the story move a little bit more. Flobo, what did you think? Since you gave this a 15.
Yeah, well, your rubric was broken. The first episode was an 8.
That's true.
What was the question? I don't know the question.
So, what do you feel about this incident on Mars? And let's see if do you have any theories?
Yeah, I was kind of taken aback by it, only because it was kind of awkward of everyone trying to befriend this F8 and realizing that he wasn't there, and it was almost like it's only a matter of time before something happens. I thought the way he, can I say, offed himself was very very unique. I thought there'd be something more like a lot less visceral, like a shutdown or something. But I don't have any theories, but I thought it was pretty entertaining.
Well, Nikki, obviously we see the moment where there's sort of some very specific flash in his eyes. So that was, the flipping over the Red Queen for our Manchurian Candidate fans out there. That was the moment where he was activated, and obviously it seems like all the synthetics on Mars were as well. So I would assume that there's probably a tie to what's been going on in these 2 episodes of Picard.
I would assume so as well. I thought it was interesting that all the synths looked the same. They had which made me think that maybe the sisters are there's not just 2, that there might be many more of the sisters.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
I hadn't thought of that. I thought that there were 2, and then they shut down production. But that would make sense because there were so many of them.
Yeah.
And we do learn something that, Frank, did you feel that this was well established in Trek canon, that the Romulans hate synthetic and artificial intelligence?
That came as a shock to me. I was like, huh?
This is the example I always use.
But you're cool about cloning.
The example I always use is all of a sudden, Back to the Future Part 2, you can't call Marty McFly a chicken. That was nowhere in the first movie.
Yeah.
It's a major plot point for the 2 sequels. And you're like, really? But that's such an important thing. Yeah. Okay, if you say so, sequel. And so clearly it's important for this story, but I was like, okay, I mean, I guess, but I don't know if I subscribe to that. Let us know in the chat how you feel.
Yeah, Star Drew actually said this episode was a story of the other side of Picard and who was the experiment right under the Admiral's nose. And Christopher Curry says they mentioned that there is a nest of these sisters.
They mentioned that there's a nest of these sisters.
Nest.
Well, you remember in the first episode when they showed up and they were like, "Where are the others?" So, it stands to reason that maybe the others are all like her.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm. This is why we do the show, so I can better understand it.
And I guess for me the not ever hearing before about the Romulans' hatred of synthetic things. We also had never heard of Jacques Bosch, so maybe that was their the secret that they all die for.
Yeah. Retcon City.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those, like, just because they've never said that they did like them ever in anything we've ever seen before. It's like, okay, well, they never said they did, so it's fine for us to say that they
didn't. That they, that they
Can I ask you guys, long-term Trek fans, do you guys accept this? Because, again, from Discovery's point of view, there's a whole thing about Michael Burnham was never mentioned. But, like, this is all like, okay, cool. At least right now it seems that way.
I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. It is, you know, it doesn't contradict something that was established.
Right. Okay.
It's not like, you know, it's also, the Romulans not particularly warm and cuddly, you know. I mean, they're like Vulcans without all the warmth, you know. A little bit chillier. I'm glad you guys like that.
Most logical, yeah.
That's a good Star Trek joke.
Yeah, I understand it now.
Yeah. If I ever do a set on 10 Forward, I'm gonna open with that.
Someone call
That's
it.
good.
Thank you. I'm glad you like
was
that.
lovely.
Guinan would introduce me. But anyway, getting a little bogged down here in the details. So, let's talk about some of the other things that we get to see. I know I asked this right before we started, but Daaj's sister's name is Soji, almost like where the Winter Olympics were in Russia.
Right.
Soji. Okay. It took me the end of the last episode to learn Daaj, and I guess Soji just didn't stick with me.
Yeah.
So we don't really know quite how much time has passed, but she was willing to make time for her new Romulan friend, and made a lot of time for him, apparently.
Hot take.
Yeah.
He's not that attractive. I'm just saying.
Okay.
He's kind of, yeah.
Agreed. when the new doctor chick was like, "Oh, I didn't know Romulans could be so hot."
Like,
Narek ain't got nothing.
Okay, so it's hot for a Romulan. I mean, look at your other Romulans.
That's true. That's true.
I guess.
I mean,
suppose.
they all have, you know, like Ringo Starr haircuts from 1966.
That is
you know,
also
it's a
true.
very specific look that they have.
very
So the
particular
bar is not
eyebrows.
set very high.
Yeah.
But I'm going to agree. You know, when I said that he looked too much like Ethan Peck as Spock, it wasn't a compliment. You know?
Yeah.
I think Ethan Peck did a great job as Spock, but the beard, that beard look, it never really worked for me. Beard works, of course, on Frank Moran.
Oh, not really. No.
I think so.
If I could grow it all over my face to cover it, I would.
Cousin Ed.
It wouldn't be a beard at that point.
You know what it would be?
Yeah.
Amazing.
It would be amazing, though.
In any case, I think it's not too hard to piece together what the end game is there. But Nikki, I'm interested in your take of Soji, you know, spending so much time kind of immediately with shifty Romulan, who she does characterize as "I thought you were a Romulan lounge lizard," which, by the way, seems not too far off.
Yeah, we don't know what his job is on the artifact yet, so we don't really know why he's there, what he's supposed to be doing there. Again, I felt like they just gave us too much information there was nothing that happened, and so I felt like I'm not curious about a lot at the moment. So I'm looking forward to see what happens. No, that's inappropriate.
Okay.
So now you have to become a Patreon of Nikki's to find out what that hot take
That's
Bonus
the only way you're
content.
gonna get it.
I'm signing up after this show.
Her swearing at things, yeah.
I did love that he seems to know how to work her as a woman. I'm interested to see, like, can he, like, does he have to fight her? Like, if she gets activated, I don't know. Like, I'm not super curious. I have to say, like, I don't care yet.
Well, you bring up that activation thing because that's we learned in the first episode that Daaj hadn't been activated yet,
Right.
so she's not aware that
Yeah.
she's synthetic.
True.
So I don't know why they're thinking that, we're going to be able to get information from her about where all these other synthetics are because she's not activated
Right.
yet.
No,
so I don't know
and-
what this part is yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and when she is activated, she's gonna kill every fugly-looking Romulan there in their unkempt, unshorn.
Well, maybe if she's activated, she won't be able to attack him out of love. Like the other one with her boyfriend. And she's all like sad and stuff,
well,
defended
she
him.
didn't. Well, the other one didn't need to attack her boyfriend.
No, for
because
sure,
he was
but
already
like
dead.
that would make things complicated. Though.
Yeah,
It wouldn't be
that's
like
true. No, but it would have been interesting if she'd had to make that decision. And I think we'll have to see. What I did think was interesting in this episode, we did get some more information about what they're doing in the Borg Cube, and so the artifact. Yes, sure. And I thought that it was interesting. And then, there's these very specific instructions that, I don't know, like 110% I'll factor into an upcoming episode about like, be very careful when you're walking around. If this thing is flashing and like everybody has to wear this thing, let me help you okay, we get it. So those are important. And if the Borg somehow become also activated, then maybe we should be worried. But we didn't see that in this episode. But we learn about sort of what they're doing. They're actually working on the Borg. As someone who's familiar with the Borg, Nikki, would you feel comfortable with the idea of like, well, once they lost a connection with the hive, as it were, we don't have to worry about them anymore? Would you feel, this is like, I'm going to brush the teeth of this sleeping tiger. I think it's going to be okay.
Okay, so I'm going to agree that might be a little dangerous. Mm-hmm. But I'm also thinking about 7 of 9. And what was that guy's name? Hugh?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Hugh.
Let's remember his name for some reason, maybe.
I'm thinking about Hugh. And and I think that would, they're possible to rehabilitate, I think, maybe.
I think those are the two instances, though. I guess technically... Elocutus of Borg was able to be rehabilitated, but I don't think he hadn't been.
He never succumbed as fully.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he did have some really nasty dreams, really to this day. So that might be part of the reason why. What do you think, Frank, about sort of this mission? And we see how Sojis feels about the way that they view the. I mean, I guess they're technically not Borg, but I don't know how else to describe them. The way that they're
Borg.
Yeah, exactly. The artists formerly known as Borgs.
Symbols.
Yes. Just the way that they're sort of treating them, and the way that they're just very like nonchalantly just sort of drilling through flesh and bone and that sort of thing. What do you think about this approach? And you think it's going to end well for the Romulans?
I don't. I'm sure there's going to be some shenanigans. Everybody loves shenanigans on a
Borg shenanigans
Borg
are the best kind,
yes.
by the way.
The
Yeah.
Benny Hinn soundtrack
I
playing.
understand something about this as they're stripping all of the Borg parts from these humanoids. Are they still going to... are they alive still? Are they dead? Are they healing them in some fashion? It was tough to tell the nameless one that they're extracting the parts from. Is that person dead? Or are they in a coma? Are they in stasis? Or what's his deal? So I don't know what their overall agenda is with all these Borg they're disassembling.
Well, they're taking the technology and selling it. That they mentioned.
Right.
And then when she spoke to him and she said, "You're free now, my friend." What was she speaking Romulan? I didn't know what language that was.
I only know Klingon, and I know it wasn't that. So, but no, I did wonder the same thing actually, because. I don't know that it was Romulan, only that in the way that...
Narek reacted.
Yeah, the way that he was just like, how do you know that language? And maybe she doesn't even realize that she knows so many languages, and in whatever species this being was prior to that. Now, Flobo, I don't want to leave you out of the party. Now, you know the Borg because you're somewhere about halfway through an initial watch of Next Generation. Yeah. So... You've seen them before.
Yeah. So Picard took a dip a couple times.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
You did all right.
Yeah, you survived. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Benjamin Sisko might disagree, but that's neither here nor there. So, what do you think about this, this project, this reclamation project?
Yeah. Hashtag bad news.
Yeah.
So we have, you were saying the nameless one. It took a minute there, which I thought was pretty interesting to say that nameless is a species, which means that I think there's going to be more like that. Her giving the little bit of a eulogy there is a bit of a connection there. I'm not sure if it was Romulan. That's the first thing I thought too, but the reaction was kind of weird. Maybe there is a connection to another species not mentioned. So it's nameless for now, but we're going to have a bit more insight as to what that species was as the episodes go on.
Right. Let's get back to the sort of the investigation of the Zot Vash and the which I guess is this sort of inner circle of the Tal Shiar secret
Before we move on, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off here. Christopher Carey in the chat says, on Ready Room, I guess the actress that played Soji, she spoke the language of the Borg drone species. I'm not sure if that's related.
No,
to
that
as well.
seems to be
wanted
exactly
to know,
what we were wondering.
Yeah.
So I guess that you're able to get information out of that show because they have an actual cast on the show.
Yeah.
That's all right. It also, I believe, it premieres at 7 a.m, and I'm up at midnight watching the new episode, so it just doesn't work for me. But no, that's very helpful. So thank you. So what I'm going to ask you first, Nikki. What did you think about sort of this method where they were able to at least attempt to show us what had happened there previously, and the explanation that Laris, who is one of the Romulans, that I don't know. I in my mind, I think of them as like Jean-Luc's caretaker, but in the way that they're indebted to him, and so they're happy to. It's almost like they volunteer. What did you think about sort of this technique that she tried? And we got to see a little bit of what happened, but not really the good stuff, as it were.
I had a little sci-fi fan confusion because I was like, where have I seen something like this before? And I couldn't remember. I think it's Warehouse 13 where they had something that did that. I don't know. Did they have something like that before in Star Trek? I don't remember, but it was familiar to me.
I don't remember
Warehouse
that
13.
technique. That doesn't strike you, Frank? Yeah. Okay.
I thought it was just way too convenient that everything had been scrubbed. I mean, first of all, it took them too long to get to the information that they finally did get. It was too easy to. It was a complex thing that wasn't even a thing. They eventually got. I don't know. It was just weak. It was weak. And I hate to say that about any.
Well, they don't solve it.
Yeah.
They don't solve the problem, but they're able to at least get that.
That she's been doing calls.
The sister is off world, and I was like, okay, so I guess, but think a scrub would be a scrub, but they explain it, and again, it's not like they're like, oh look, we just did Star 69 and we realized that the call actually came from within the Borg Cube,
Right.
So let's just go there. So they know that they don't need to look at Earth, but in a way that's not particularly helpful because there's it's like, well, we could look at Earth or we could look everywhere else. So
it's a big galaxy.
It is actually. I thought it was interesting, and I did think it was nice to get to see the two both of the Romulan caretakers, to get to kind of see them a little bit more involved instead of just helping Jean-Luc with his tea in the premiere, the episode that Flobo didn't like. Premiere.
And the vineyard. Don't forget the vineyard, man.
It's
got bugs in the pinyoirs.
We would never forget about it. The reason why we're getting this though is this notion that the Zot Vash, which is easy for me to say, they're there to keep a secret that is so profound and terrible, just learning it would break a person's mind. And I know for a fact, Frank, you know what that secret is. Go ahead and tell us what it is.
They love French fries.
It's not terrible at all.
All right. See you next season, guys.
If it was like
and they probably put mayonnaise on it too.
Okay, see, now you're getting closer because I was going to say anchovies on pizza. Yeah, that's a terrible secret. Don't tell anybody.
That's just don't.
Yeah.
Let's go to space.
Yeah, so we have that. And what do you think about this notion, Flobo, that they need to keep this secret? This is on them.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is intriguing enough. And to your point, Nikki, I was kind of torn. There is a part of me that's like, man, I wish they were in space already. But it did seem kind of easy for them to know about his backstory. It's a very common TV trope, like, I thought it was a myth. It's not a myth. And here's the whole backstory right there in a nice little package. But you know what? It opens up the mystery for me. There's a lot of serpentine roads you can go to. It says it almost has like a nesting egg mechanic where they'd be a face around the organization. Other people may even work in their name. So I'm on board. And what that stands for, I don't quite know yet. But whatever that unspeakable secret is, I'm on board.
Well, in the chat, please let us know what theories you might have for what the unspeakable secret is.
For me, it is like a classic Trek novel where they find some, the deep cut will vary in terms of how deep it is, but they'll find something like that and think like, ooh, what's a spin on that we can do to make it so important that only this particular character is the appropriate one to solve it. So I feel like, all right. So I feel like I'm watching a Trek novel being shown to me, where we now find this secret history we didn't even know about, and then but only Jean-Luc. Yeah, we have to have the most important reason for why we need to have this series back.
But kind of not one of your favorite Trek novels. One where you read it and you're like, oh, yeah, one was all right. Yeah.
Well, there's one that had the Doomsday Machine had ties to the Borg. So there you go.
All right. I don't want to brush over. It's sort of kind of an incidental scene, but Picard is visited by. I had to look this up thanks to this article. He's visited by a doctor, Dr. Maurice Benayoun, actor David Paymer, who I hadn't seen in a while. Yikes. David Paymer, still working though. God bless him.
Yeah.
He references, working together with Picard on the Stargazer, which is his ship before the Enterprise. And so there's always that notion of like, where's the young Picard show? When are we going to get that?
Right.
Frank?
That's right. We want to see that Picard mover played for in real time, not just hear stories about it in the past.
Right.
I don't know.
Remember when you did that Picard mover, Jean-Luc? Remember?
In any case, the gist of it is that we learn that there's a parietal lobe abnormality, which we all know how bad that can be. But in all seriousness, that regardless of what it is and however they treat it, eventually it's going to kill Jean-Luc.
He gonna die.
He doesn't look, he's closer to the end than he is to the beginning. I think we talked about that last week. But I guess he's getting a little closer thanks to this. So what do you think, Nikki, this does for Jean-Luc in the sense of how he looks at the situation? Do you think he's well, let me just ask you the question. How do you think he
of course he had to be dying so that he has nothing to lose by going to space.
True.
And potentially, and he's driven by this passion to do right by Data, who died for him, kind of like a whole I gotta do right for Jesus because he died for me kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, maybe. Okay. Anyway,
Jesus now? What?
No, I get theological. But honestly, I just felt like it was, like they had to give him some reason where it's not too much of a risk to send a 92-year-old man to space, right? Like, he's going to die anyway, so he might as well die in space doing what he loves.
Okay, I saw that, but I definitely saw the fact that everyone thinks he's off his rocker. With his blow up of the interview, the eventual argument we're going to see with the admiral, and having commander, and having doctor saying, "Hey, look, you are good. As for an old man, you're clean as a whistle. But you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? I think you need a kind of a little bit of boxing match. You just want someone to be like, I'm going to space. You need someone to get in his face and say, these are the risks. You sure you want to go ahead and die? And I know watching it, you're saying, yeah, you're right. It's a common trope of I gotta do right for my friend, but I think it has to be there. It's like a stop sign on a street. You have to have it there to make sure you regulate traffic. You have to have it there to make sure you make this inciting incident happen.
But see, I don't know if I buy that either. I mean, one, it was like, you sure you want to go back into the cold? Like, are we saying in this time period of the Federation, everybody hates space travel? Is that so? That was
well. I do think that seems to be what Jean-Luc's problem with Starfleet is at this point. That it seems like from largely because of the Mars incident, and sort of the events also surrounding the what created the J.J. Abrams versus the Kelvin timeline, basically. There's all of this, and I think that they're definitely a little bit more inward than we've seen them before. I mean, I guess technically maybe on Enterprise or something, it wasn't they were, but I don't know. I think they were more spacefaring at that point. So I do think that it is a little bit more. It's like It's like America after World War One. It's like, no, we're good. Let's just have fun. Let's just stay here. Let's not go out tonight. Let's stay in.
We have dames to smooch.
Yeah, let's just CBS All Access and chill. Thank you.
Yeah, they would say that.
Of course they would.
That being said, I mean this parietal lobe abnormality. I feel like it's focused. We know we're getting renewed for second season, so I hold no stock in this. I feel like it's something related to his time as Locutus.
Me too.
And it's going to be resolved by the end of the season. So for me, I was just like, that's like I already started thinking Borg. We're gonna have a solution by the end of the season. So for me, it was just like unnecessary.
I agree. And then the piece that was being removed from the nameless Borg dude was kind of right here, which I think is where your parietal lobe is. So I agree. It's connected to that, but also...
Okay, well, here I
Better be
was
good.
worried that Jean-Luc was going to die, but you guys don't seem to care. All right, it's fine.
Nah, it was faux suspense that plays.
It's just called Picard, but Picard not anymore. It's random.
Well, let's talk about Picard's visit to Starfleet, which I did have a friend text me that pointing out the fact that you had to push the door open to Starfleet.
Yeah.
You going back to the original series, doors always shh. Nope. Not at Starfleet headquarters. You got to push that, especially if you're a 92-year-old man. So that's such a minor thing, but it did make me laugh that it was called out. So I wanted to mention that. But
wait, because it's frustrating when you use real world locations for this. Because I noticed that when he walks in, you see like all the hinges on the doors.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Okay. It was like, this is the future,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
We're away from hinges on doors at this point. We don't need that.
Cure diseases. There's hinges on doors.
Yeah. Well, I guess in the future you can see that they still have a Starbucks in the lobby, but that's all right. That's fine. So he meets with Admiral Kirsten Clancy, who I think is a delight. She really seems.
I don't know who she thought she was talking to like that, though.
Some old guy who basically walked away from Starfleet, I guess.
He introduced himself at the lobby to get a visitor's badge.
Yeah.
Oh, right? That
Speaking of
was...
the lobby.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yes.
He walks in and we see, the original Enterprise, Kirk's Enterprise. Then it goes to the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So
Nobody. We established this last week. Nobody cares about the E.
But
the
it's
D
also,
was the one.
So nobody shows the E, or is it those are the only two ships that the entire Federation cares about? Because you're not seeing the Voyager, you're not seeing the Defiant.
I'm just going to stop you. The answer is very clear. Yes. The Enterprise, they don't care about the B or the C, obviously. And the A, I don't know. I don't think they really care about the Enterprise. It's really just the OG... NCC 1701, and then the D, and then the rest of it. It's all the other ships that we've seen. They're not that interested.
But if that's the case, when he gets the name badge, and the guy goes, "And you are?" Why didn't he just go like
just
this?
put it there.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, look, my ship is right there, dude. Like, what?
Look, I just have to say it happens. Just a very brief real world anecdote. When I was a page at NBC, I had to convince the security guard to let Bill Murray in. It was the 25th anniversary of Saturday Night Live.
Oh, wow.
And he was there for that. And I was like, no, he's okay. So I had to make sure that they let Bill Murray in. So I'm just saying it can happen.
Right.
But and I think Bill Murray is more famous than Jean-Luc Picard, even in the future, but maybe I'm wrong. In any case, what did you think of that meeting, Frank, with Admiral Clancy?
I mean, it does make sense given the consequences, everything that happened, and then Jean-Luc's interview. Although I felt like his outburst, his raised voice during the course of the interview. I mean, I didn't think it was horrible, but clearly Starfleet not a huge fan of being called out like that. So
yeah,
but I think it was also foolish of Jean-Luc to go think hey, yeah, I know I retired 14 years ago under the not the best circumstances, but just
give me a ship and you can bump me down to captain, so you don't have to pay me as much.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I'll do that for you.
Yeah, exactly. I think that that meeting went as we expected it to, but apparently not the way that Jean-Luc thought it would. What did you think of that, Flobo?
Can I say that scene of him with the escalator down was so sad? It
wasn't great.
Giant cloud over his head.
No.
You know what? I was actually engaged in this because seeing how even killed Picard could be a Next Generation, having him just be so easily excitable here was kind of out of character. But in a way, it kind of worked for me. It was like, well, yeah, you're kind of out of practice. You don't really have those walls up as you are if you're in service. And now you are asking to be in service. You're obviously not fit to handle yourself in this conversation, and you paid for it dearly. With her being like, no, it's not your thing to play and command at will. Get out of my office. So.
Nikki, you've already established that she, really didn't take into consideration who she was talking to. If you'd been in that room, how would you have responded to the Admiral? And by that I mean Admiral Clancy, not Admiral Picard.
Oh, well, I would have took my earrings off. We would have fought. No. No, well, the thing that was interesting to me is just to, right, exactly. Like, if, I grew up watching The Next Generation where he was so respected by everyone and his opinion mattered so much. And it was like a little heartbreaking to see how the mighty have fallen. It just was a little sad. And I was like, don't you know who he is? He's so important. But apparently not.
Not important enough. He gives her all of the reasons why this is important. Not just like, I need a ship. I can't tell you. He gives all the specifics. It's like the synthetics and then that project and what he's known about the Romulans. And of course, Admiral Clancy does what any good bureaucrat really can do. Lets Commodore O, Vulcan, know and knows all about it. And Commodore O's like, well, thanks so much for bringing this to my opinion. Yeah, you did the right thing. That guy's crazy. He doesn't know nothing. And she immediately calls Lieutenant Rizzo, which you should kind of know that that's going to be a fake name. She didn't look anything like a Rizzo at all. I mean,
what is Rizzo?
I know, she didn't have a pink leather jacket on or anything.
Well, I was going to say Dustin Hoffman, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, either way, didn't look anything like it. And, sort of goes through the whole thing and is like, oh, we're getting found out. So you're going to have to take care of this. And then that's when we learn that Rizzo is Narek's brother. And you can really see the resemblance in that she's not really that hot either. Thank you. I just thought of that while I was talking.
Zing!
And her ears did look kind of ridiculous, her human ears. I have to say, they were a little too round. It was like, they were just too perfect. Nobody's ears are that round. We get sort of, that realization that like, okay, so within Starfleet, they're very much aware of the situation and they realize that, okay, he definitely knows too much. So we'll have to take care of the situation. And what do you think about this revelation? We knew that Narek was up to no good just from how shifty he walked and looked around and lurked and all of that. But what do you think, Nikki, about this revelation that we got?
Again, it was just too much information given to me. I would have enjoyed a little more suspense about what Starfleet knows or doesn't, or what Commodore O knows or doesn't know, or who these people are and how they're working. It was just a lot of. It was like just too much setup and nothing. It doesn't mean anything yet, I guess is what I'm thinking. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just a little disappointed by this episode, so I'm having a hard time finding.
I think this episode in general, it's just a lot of setup is what it really comes down to. We get some more information on Daaj and Sojis because Dr. Jurati? I don't know.
Jurati.
Yeah. Of course, reading a book, an Isaac Asimov book, it's always nice to see some things about Star Trek remain in there. We get to learn about that most of it was a fabrication, which I think makes sense. So we're getting this information that she just sort of magically was inserted into her life basically about 3 years ago, it seems to be. So the sort of the main thing that we get at the end before we dive into a very brief news item, and I mean very brief, is that we see Jean-Luc put on the old comm badge and calls his friend Raffi who is not the children's musician, but rather Michelle Hurd.
I get that reference too.
I know.
Yeah, man.
I didn't know.
Puts in the work, man. Shout out to Rafi.
Shout out to Rafi. I did sort of like that interaction. Flobo just sort of showing up, and she points a gun at him. And, there's sort of, it was like, all right, well, secret Romulan assassins. And, of course, he's brought some amazing wine. What did you think about that interaction, Flobo?
I'm so glad he bought the wine. Jeez, he's going to blow his head off.
He knew, yeah.
Yeah, I don't quite buy the reason he went there. Like, I need someone that hates me and has nothing to lose. But the idea that there's a lot of chemistry already there. We don't know what their backstory is. Maybe there's some layers there to be peeled. But to me, that was a perfect introduction to Raffi. How strong-willed she can be. How willing to find common ground Picard was. Even when he said, "Look, don't hang up. Listen, I got a problem." So I was on board. Yeah.
Well, the bulk of us here on the panel were somewhat underwhelmed by this episode. But Frank, do you feel like, taking it into consideration, it's probably all important, sort of story, character building that'll set up, hopefully, great 6 episodes for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're not going to waste the real estate, hopefully.
Yeah.
I will give one shout out, though, to the tweaked Deep Space Nine costumes, though. I thought the higher collar on it made it really nice.
I did notice that it was that very specific look, which is, I don't know, I mean, 20 some odd years. They've had a lot of looks since then. There was like the gray with like the almost turtleneck, and I know we should do a fashion segment.
Yeah, there were a couple of like stitching things that caused some weird like thing that it was distracting to me, and I'm sorry.
I think,
but it was distracting.
I honestly think Patrick Stewart is relieved that he won't be in uniform because of how often he had to always pull it down because it just didn't fit him right for whatever reason. So I think I don't know. I feel like we can agree. Even Flobo gave it a 15 out of 5 or whatever it was. That I think that we're going to. I think that this will be a foundation that some great stories are going to be built on, and hopefully when we're here next week, we're talking about how I understand now why episode 2 had to lull a little bit.
And hopefully they're in space.
Real quick, if you want to know more backstory about Raffi and Picard's housekeepers, there's IDW had the Picard Countdown 3-issue miniseries, which gives you more of the backstory.
Yes, and it's very important that we do find out for sure Geordi LaForge is alive, because they give the idea of the crew. And I only know this because a avid listener, viewer of the various Trek shows here at AfterBuzz, a friend of mine named Mark Hunt, he points out that in that series, they point out that Geordi was actually on the Mars colony, and we didn't know for sure if he had lived or died, but it seems to be revealed in this episode that we could see him at some point. But Jean-Luc, in putting the crew together, I think it's it makes sense that he doesn't want to bring the gang back, because he's like, they'll all do it, is what he said.
Yeah.
But it's because it's the show. It's not the Next Generation. It's Picard.
Well, yeah, but also, I mean, they gave a good reason why he's not. Colin Worf. Michael Dorn was probably like, no, I'll do it. I'll just do it as Michael Dorn. Like, I don't even don't have to put the bumps on or anything.
And Michael Search for Spock. We know what the crew will do for the captain. So.
Yeah, and we know who we'll see in the near future. Anyway, we'll talk more, obviously, as we see where the story goes. I know we did have one news item, Frank.
Yes, they unveiled the new Space Force logo. We knew. And it has some familiar touchstones.
Yes, so the Space Force logo unveiled. This is an initiative by our president, and that is it's been very important that there be a Space Force. And not pictured here is the fact that their uniforms are camouflage, which
that's necessary
in space. In space, no one can hear you scream, and they also can't see you if you blend in with a space tree. But yeah, I think we traded some messages about this over the past week, and I just want to know what kind of intellectual property lawyers Starfleet Command has that this has happened.
George Takei was like, they better give us some money for this.
Well, George isn't going to get anything,
Obviously.
but Paramount, CBS Television, somebody should get it. It's uncanny, and that's why we're bringing it up.
Do we have like interest in space? Like, do we have? Is it like Antarctica where it's like you have a slice of it, or is it just kind of wherever your
Yeah, I
satellites
don't know
are?
if you know this, but there's oil on the moon. So
Okay.
that's actually
We claimed
what it
that
is.
already.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
That's ours. Yeah, that's why we put our flag there.
Right.
Yeah, so that nobody
that
else
was what the
steals-
whole space race was about.
Nobody else steals our moon oil.
Waka waka.
All right, we are already late, so let's just get one prediction each from everybody, if we can do that.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
We'll go all the way up down the desk. Frank.
Wine will be drank.
Flobo.
What? That doesn't count.
That's a hot take.
The crew has not been finalized next week.
Oh, you think that next week we still won't? Yeah, that's probably right. It's like the first 10 minutes of Ocean's 11. We still don't have everybody. Nikki?
I predict that something will actually happen in the next episode.
And I predict return of number one. Where was number one? The dog. We didn't see him this week. So
He's at the groomers.
I hope. Anyway, I know those were, but no, I think that I'm looking forward to the next episode because I'm a glutton for punishment. I was looking forward to this episode, a little bit let down, but no, I think that I'm very intrigued by a lot of the sort of carrots that they've dangled in front of us. Anyway, that is our time for this week. We will see you next week, Thursday, 9 p.m. Pacific. Until then, Frank, where can people follow you?
On Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie.
Flobo.
You can follow me at Flobo Boyce on Twitter, at Flopito on Instagram, and of course, Flopito.com.
New content every week.
New content every week.
Nikki Bailey _ on all the social medias.
And you can find me on social media at ChristianDMZ. And if you enjoy seeing Flobo and I, well, tune in Mondays here on AfterBuzz TV at 2 p.m. Pacific for the Curb Your Enthusiasm after show. It's basically just like this show.
Yeah.
And then this past Tuesday, Flobo was on a show that I co-host on the Popcorn Talk, which is called Retro Anatomy of a Movie, and we looked at Annie Hall.
Good show.
So check that out. That is all the time we have. So until next week, live long and prosper.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.